Well, hey, everybody, Mr. Reeves back with you, and we are continuing to work through Module 5 on proportions and percent. Specifically, today we're looking at Lesson 5.2, Rewriting Percent Expressions. So, in our previous lesson, 5.1, we were looking at percent of increase and percent of decrease. Just a reminder, when you have a percent of increase, the value goes up, and when you have a percent of decrease, the value goes down. So kind of continuing with that theme, today we're going to be talking about markups and markdowns. So a markup is when you have a percent of increase, so the price goes up. All right, a markdown, which is when you have a price decrease and then the price goes down. Sorry, I was trying to find it right there. There it is, a markdown. So it's a discount or a markdown when you have a percent decrease. It is a markup when you have a price increase. All right, so we're going to be looking at those two things and also how to write different expressions to represent both markups and markdowns. All right, so let's take a look. First of all, they have something here that they call a bar model to show how to show a markup. So one thing that's going to be kind of new in what we're doing now that we weren't doing before is we're going to be using a variable. Remember, a variable is a letter to represent an unknown or a changing value, an unknown or a changing value. So we're going to be using a variable to represent the initial cost. All right, so the initial cost for this skateboard is S. So this bar right here that I'm coloring in yellow represents the initial cost. Now we're having a markup. All right, so a markup means the price is going to increase, and they are marking it up 42%. So this part right here represents 42% of that. And as we talked about in the previous lesson, first of all, if you have 42% and you want to multiply it, you need to move the decimal over 2 places to the left, right? So 42% will become 0.42. Again, 42% is 0.42 as a decimal because you move the decimal 2 places to the left. But we want what? We want 42% of the original price, which is S. So what do we get? We get 0.42. Remember that of, that is our signal we're going to be multiplying. When you see that of, you should think multiplication. So 0.42 times S. But we're not going to put an X for S because that, since we're using variables, that X might get confused with a variable. So when you're working with variables, you do not use an X for multiplication. You can just put the number directly in front of the variable, and that means 0.42 times S. And that number there is called the coefficient. When you put a number in front of a variable that it's being multiplied by, it is called a coefficient. All right? So this right here, this represents the markup. All right? This right here represents the original cost. All right? And so this entire thing here, this entire thing that I am doing in magenta, all of that put together, that represents the selling price, or what they call the retail price. Okay, that's the price you're going to pay in the store. They paid S for it. They added 42S to it, right? So what do we have? We have the original cost plus the retail markup, plus the markup gives us the retail price. All right, So the entire bar here, the original cost, we add to it, we put those two together to get the retail price. As you can see right here, it tells us the retail price is equal to the original cost plus the markup. The retail price is equal to the original cost plus the markup. All right, now we're going to look instead at markdowns, okay? So again, we're going to have a regular price, all right? So we have the original thing we have here that I marked yellow before is P. Excuse me, I should mark it yellow again, all right? So P represents the regular price, all right? But now instead of a markup, we have a mark down, and that markdown is 20%. So we have a 20% mark down. All right, so 20% markdown. Remember, 20% we're going to change to a decimal by moving the decimal 2 places to the left. So we get 0.20, or you don't really have to put the 0 on there. It's optional. You'll see that they did not put the 0 on there. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on there just because as a reminder that it's 20%, right? But what do we want? It's 20% of our original price, right? And remember, what does that of tell us to do? Multiply. We're going to multiply, right? So 0.20. And remember, when we're working with variables, we do not use an x for multiplication. We simply put the number in front of the variable. That number is called the coefficient. So that part right there, that represents our mark down, okay? So we have the original thing all the way across, all right? All the way across was yellow. That was our original price, right? We now have the markdown, and I wish they would. Let's see if I could do this. I'm going to make another rectangle down here. Well, actually, I'm going to make it right here. All right, let me try that again. Let me try one more time and see if I could do better. And let me do green because green is what they did. So let's see if I could do this. All right, that's not too bad right there. Okay, so this part here, remember that I colored in right there? That pink part there, whoops. That pink part there, that represents the selling price or the discounted price, okay? So that is our discounted. Oh my goodness, Mr. Reeves, let's try this again. Discounted price. Okay, so again, when we have a markup, we have our original, we have the markup expression, and then we add the two together. So when you have a markup, you end up with a bar that's longer. When you have a markdown, you end up, notice the pink part is shorter. Again, on a markup, the pink part is longer because it's the yellow plus the green, right? On a markdown, it's the yellow minus the green. All right, there's one more thing I want to show you before I end this video, and then in our next video we'll actually do some problems. And there are multiple ways to write this expression. So actually, let's go back to where we were before with our markup. Okay, we had s plus 42s. So in fact, let me just do it right down here. All right, we had s plus 0.42s. And that is one way to write the markup. But we can simplify it, okay? So s is the same as 1s. So it's 1s plus 0.42s, and 1 plus 0.42 is 1.042s. All right, so they're going to be asking you to write it two different ways. This way, we're writing the two separate. This way, we combine them. By the way, what that means is 100 and, excuse me, it's not 0.42. It's 1.42. I apologize. All right, that 1 gets added to that 0, right? If we were showing it this way, my apologies, it would be 1.00 plus 0.42, and that would give us 1.42. All right, so it's 142% of the original. That's what 1.42 means. Okay, remember when we were doing percent of increase? All right, it's a 42% increase. So these are the two different ways to write that same expression. S plus 0.42s and 1.42s. All right, that is two ways. You add them together. You add them together when you have that increase. All right, so let's now go to this one right here where we had the decrease. All right, and now let's go ahead and write what we had. We had P minus 0.2P, right? And that represented our discounted price, right? Okay, but remember this is the same as 1P minus 0.2p. So what do we have? We have 1.00 minus 0.2 or 0.20. Remember I put the 0 on there. And if we do that, all right, we get 0.80. All right, so we get 0.80p or just 0.8. You could do it either way. Again, I'm going to keep that 0 on there because I want to emphasize what we now have is 80% of our original price. Okay, 80% of our original. So again, we've got two different ways to represent it. We have P minus 0.2P, but if you take away 20%, what do you have? You have 80% left. So when you have a discounted price, when you simplify it, you are going to get a decimal coefficient that is smaller than 1. When you have a discounted price, when you simplify it, you're going to get a decimal coefficient that is smaller than 1. When you have an increased price, when you have a markup, you're going to get a decimal coefficient that is larger than 1. When you have a markup, you're going to get a decimal coefficient that is larger than 1. Okay, so that's our introduction to mark up and mark down. In our next video, we're going to go ahead and work out some problems. All right, until next time.